Hello, I am here at the Tennessee, this is called the House Chamber, and this is where all of the voting to pass state laws and things like that go on. So, yesterday we read how Violet kept trying to sneak into this area where the senators were, and then she kept getting kicked out. This is where she got Harry T. Burn the letter, and then at the very end, this is where she found Mr. Turner, who's going to get on the phone with Governor Cox. So the gallery area that they're talking about are these up on either side. So if you can see, there's this balcony area up here on both the left and right hand side. So that's where everyone is watching the vote from. And so the spectators, they're not allowed to be here on the floor. They kicked out everyone that's on the floor, and they're making them congregate up here. So today they're going to start doing a roll call vote. And what a roll call vote is that there's a big long list of legislators down here at their desks. Okay, so they'll go through each person individually and they'll ask them how they voted. And if that person is voting for women's suffrage, then they'll say I, and not like the letter I, but AYE. AYEI means yes. Or if they're opposed to it, they will say nay, NAY, which means no. So, that is what's going to be going on today. And you can see it's a really tall building. You know, it looks very kind of, just very fancy. Anyway, so good stuff. Let's start reading. Mr. Turner looked even more sour. I know who Governor Cox is, miss. He tiredly got to his feet. Violet led him out of the house chamber. The sergeant at arms scowled and said, "Don't come back here again, missy," and across the great hall to the office where the phone call was waiting. Mr. Turner reached for the telephone, glaring at Violet at the same time. "All right, I'm here, miss. Now scram." "Good morning, Governor." Governor Roberts smiled at Violet. "Thanks, kid. Now run along." Violet went back out into the hall. The crush of people moving up the narrow staircases to the spectators' gallery had slowed to a trickle. Violet went up the stone stairs to the gallery. It was sweltering hot. From the balcony at the top of the stairs, she looked down at the cross-shaped hall. Still, no Chloe. Violet looked around the crowded gallery for a seat. There were none left. People were crammed into the aisles. There were deep window sills, 2 feet deep, at least 6 feet wide near the floor, and people were standing on them. And that's those windows that you can see in the background it's talking about. Violet wormed her way through the crowd to the brass rail at the front of the gallery. She stood behind the rail with people pressing close all around her. She looked down at the house floor below. She hadn't had a good view of it when she was down there. The whole chamber was hung with yellow bunting, yellow flowers. There was even a yellow sunflower wound around an eagle on the wall. Chloe wasn't down there either. "There are too many red roses," a woman standing next to Violet murmured. Violet looked up and saw Miss Dexter, the lady she'd ridden with on the train from Washington. "There's an awful lot of yellow," she said. "Up here there is," said Miss Dexter, "but there are too many red roses down there." Violet looked down at the floor again. Miss Dexter was right. More legislators were making their way into the chamber from the committee rooms alongside. Some wore yellow roses, but far too many wore red roses. Violet saw Credwell, the suff legislator she had retrieved in the hope chest the day before. He was a suff no longer. He was wearing a red rose. "Did you notice Harry T. Burn has a red rose?" someone near Violet said. "Cross Burn off." Miss Dexter winced. "We worked so hard on Burn," she said to Violet. A ripple of excitement spread through the galleries as a man with a yellow rose made his way onto the floor. "Griffin!" Miss Dexter said. "Griffin made it back from California, thank goodness." A very pale, unhealthy-looking man limped out onto the floor, leaning on the shoulder of an aide. He wore a yellow rose on his lapel. Cheers broke out in the gallery. "Dowling!" Miss Dexter cried, cheering with the rest. "Dowling, he's still alive!" Seth Walker pounded his gavel. "Order! The House is in session! All non-members must leave the floor!" "Turncoat!" Miss Dexter hissed, glaring at Walker. "Traitor! Benedict Arnold!" A woman wearing a red rose turned around and scowled at Violet, apparently under the impression that she was the one who had spoken. "Non-members, leave the floor!" Seth Walker commanded again. I remember Seth Walker, he was the guy that very first night when Violet gets to the Hermitage Hotel, he was that one the first night that we meet that he had switched sides, that he had been a suffragist and now he had switched to an anti-suffragist, and people think that he'd been paid money to do that. There are plenty of non-members on the floor, men and women, pleading and cajoling with the representatives trying to change their votes. Officials came around, taking people by the arms and leading them off the floor over to the sidelines. "We haven't got it," Miss Dexter murmured. "We haven't got it." Other people around Violet were whispering the same thing. Violet felt her stomach do an anguished flip-flop. How was it possible? How could everything they'd worked so hard for fail? "What do you mean we haven't got it?" she demanded. "We have 47 votes," said Miss Dexter, "out of 99. 96 members are present, and the antis have 49 votes." "That's impossible," Violet said. "Shh!" several people hissed. "Count the roses for yourself," Miss Dexter snapped. A young woman in a wide-brimmed hat turned around. Violet recognized Miss Anita Pulitzer. "Here's the list, Violet. See for yourself." Violet took the paper Miss Pulitzer handed her. Names and tally marks had been crossed out and written over. "But some of these people were ours yesterday," Violet said, remembering to speak quietly. Debate had started on the floor below now. "Like Blotz and Credwell." "They certainly were," said Miss Pulitzer, "but they aren't now." "But it's not fair," Violet managed with difficulty to keep her voice low. "They can't have just sold their votes like that." "Of course they can," said a woman near Violet who was wearing a yellow sash. "All you need to buy votes is a whole lot of money and a few fools who actually agree with you." Violet shook her head, rejecting this cynical view. She handed the paper back to Miss Pulitzer. Miss Dexter clutched Violet's shoulder hard. "He's called for a vote." "What?" said Violet. The murmur went around the gallery. "He's called the question. Mr. Walker's called for a vote. That means he's sure. He knows." "Knows the antis have enough votes to win," thought Violet. "So, this is really the end," said Miss Dexter. Violet heard tears in her voice. "It's not the end," she said, more because she wanted to comfort Miss Dexter than because she believed it. "There's Vermont." "We can't get Vermont," someone said, and Violet whirled around to see Chloe. "When did you get here?" Violet cried. "Is Mr. Martin—" "Shh!" several people hissed at once. "Yes," said Chloe. Violet thought she was answering the question about Mr. Martin, but what did "yes" mean? "They're voting on a motion to table," an anti near Violet snapped. "What's that mean, table?" Miss Dexter frowned. "It means to not vote on ratification at all," she said. "To table the question. To put it aside. It's what North Carolina did, you blithering idiot," she added. And we will stop there. So Chloe has returned, but we don't know anything yet about Mr. Martin or Myrtle. So it's interesting to me that even people, yesterday how she went to get Blotz and Credwell the day before in the Hope Chest, that now they've even turned sides. So that's not looking so good. We'll see what happens. Thanks for listening.